Welcome everyone to another Monday edition of the Win by Noon webinar. I am the Win by Noon founder and CEO. I always hate these titles, Todd Brooksman, and I'm super excited that you're all here. I'm also equally, if not more excited I shouldn't say that. Well, I'm excited for all of you, but I'm super excited that I got Deborah Bird here, founder of Plug and Play SM, here as my co-hostess with the mostest. What's up?
You like my shirt or what? Isn't it pretty and blue with the black background?
You know, I definitely a little envious of that. I got to up my Win by Noon shirt game, but my kids make fun of me because, I carry a water bottle that's got all this Win by Noon stuff on it. I carry my Win by Noon planner wherever I go. I only wear Win by Noon baseball hats and I only wear Win by Noon shirts. So they're like, come on, Dad. But I kind of feel like maybe if I had a different color, they might be into it.
Yeah, I like the bright red. I like the blue, and it's the real soft cotton. So it's nice.
I wore
Y'all
the red
didn't skip
one.
out on the cheap cotton.
I
That's
did
for
wear the
sure.
red one last Friday, so that was kind of good
Yeah.
to wear that again. And now I'm going back to the old standby, which is the collared shirt. So
Oh,
it's the fourth Monday of the month, so I teach to my financial advisors after this, and so I try to look like fancy for them. I mean, not that I wouldn't look fancy for the rest of you who are watching this live or watching this on YouTube, but I think that is I think that's all good. So we titled this something interesting today. You and I were going back and forth. We said how this agent team earned $80,000 in commission by, whoops, hang on, get cut off. I don't remember the rest of it, but I'll find it right here.
it was Ken Kozak from Orlando, Florida. It was his team.
All right. So yeah, so you saw a TikTok on it and it was, right. So you said how they did it by executing this one strategy with a world-class fight. And so let me kind of give my backstory of where I was heading on this conversation today. And then of course, Deborah, as always, made it sound much cooler and better than what I did. Those of you who follow me, because I'm so good on social media, just kidding. Last night I did like 4 things on my story. So that's what Deborah says, do 4 to 5. But I had this thought. I was at the Arizona Cardinals game and they were playing the Baltimore Ravens. And I was kind of laughing with my brother-in-law who I have season tickets with. And I was like, gosh, I'm so happy we only have one preseason game this year. Cause you have to pay for those and they're not cheap. And when there's normally 2, and then we only have to go to 1. And cause you don't play your starters. It's not as exciting, but I realized that's the wrong attitude to have, right? When I was there and I realized you've got the 3rd string quarterback on the Cardinals. And now granted, the Ravens who they were playing have the longest preseason win streak. It's now 22 since they beat the Cardinals. Wow. But ultimately I realized is these guys are out there and they're playing for their job, right? This is their career. They're either going to get cut and then not be a football player, go to some other job. They could get cut and be put on the practice squad. They could get cut and then traded. Now, of course, my brother-in-law did say that he just did a loan for a guy who got traded to the Cardinals. And then he already got traded off to Kansas City where he thinks he's on the practice squad, but he's making like a lot of money, like almost $500,000. So he's like, well, it's still not a bad job for some of these people, but really what I thought was, gosh, these people are laying out there all on the field every day because they're trying to get a job. And then I thought to myself, gosh, I wonder, am I going to show up tomorrow? And of course I make it accusatory to everyone who watched my thing of how are you going to show up tomorrow? But really it was always focused at me. How am I going to show up tomorrow? Am I going to show up like my job depends on my performance today? Because that's really how those folks all played. And so, we stayed there and cheered them on.
Well, and of course, I just had one kiddo walk in. I hear the Cardinal story and I go straight to the UFC. So if you were following me on social media, you would know that I was watching the UFC fight, which was a big deal this weekend. It was a complete upset.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Well, I'm not usually like, as we were watching it, in fact, Ben Lemon, he was actually in Salt Lake City, which is where it was hosted. So when I made my post, he was like, I actually saw this live, but it was a little like my stomach got a little nauseous because when he did the one hit, he did a kick. Right,
so build it up to that point though. So start with like, how was the fight going? Who was in the fight? Like who was supposed to win?
So he was down. So first of all, they had fought before. It was like back in 2014. And the guy, Usman, who was expected to win, I mean, he was the world champion before, and he's known as like the go-to wrestler. And of course they weighed the same amount, but he just looks stockier, meaner. And ironically, he lost the first round. So what I liked about that example is like, here's someone who they thought would just either do a one hit and the guy would be knocked down, or it would be a quick 5 rounds where, Usman, or however you say his last name, was expected to win, without a doubt. I mean, and but he got knocked. He lost the first round. So it's like, how do you respond when you lose maybe the first quarter or the second quarter, or you show up and you have your plan and your goal is 20 calls on a Monday, but you only get to like 10. And it's sometimes it's those micro moments of how you choose to respond to then determine how the rest of the fight goes. So because he is a champion and he's been a champion, he came back and he was almost more pissed off. So then he wins round 2, round 3, round 4. So now Edwards, who has never, he came from nothing. I think he's from Jamaica, came from nothing, had never won, wasn't expected to win, didn't have the best resources or training or upbringing like when you were, if you were to compare the two side by side. There's no reason why this guy should have even had made it as far as he did, other than he had the grit. And that's what, you know, part of the message today is, do you have the fight and the grit to sustain and beat all odds, even when everyone else around you may be saying, oh, the market, or oh, the media, this and that. Anyways, so then it gets down to the last round. It's the 5th round. And, you know, Usman kind of probably thought he had it in the bag, and all the announcers like Joe Rogan was like, oh my gosh, like there was a minute and a half left and they were basically writing the Edwards's obituary. But all it took was one side kick and Edwards hit like right, and it had to be at the right time, the right position, the right force. And he did like a hit to the left to kind of make him, you know, react, and then he did a side kick and it knocked Usman out, like to the point where his eyes rolled back in the back of his head. He fell straight back, and I mean, he almost looked dead, honestly. He was definitely out of it, and he ended up coming back. But and so because he knocked him out, he won and owned the title of now the world champion, where he was, I mean, it was just a complete upset and no one expected it. And he was so, you could tell he had just, it wasn't like he had just trained for 1 week or 1 day or 1 year. It was something he had trained for so long and he wanted it so bad. And through all the, you know, he had said through COVID and all the losses of and agony and training, and was all for this moment that he was hopeful to have. And, you know, everyone in the stands, they literally thought there's no way, like the guys, they didn't even know how he was standing because he had been beaten pretty bad for the other rounds. So it just was incredible to see someone come back and not lose faith and keep pushing, even when, I mean, he was tired. But all it took was one side kick, and you just never know, that one phone call could lead. In fact, we did a call with Drake where he had a trigger alert and he proactively made a phone call to the client. I don't know if you remember this, Todd. The clients were
I love Drake.
looking to, it was either to refinance, they were going to pull equity out, but they had gone with a rate and term option with the servicer. And he proactively made just that one call, and it revealed that they wanted to buy $1 million worth of real estate for investment purposes, because these were 2 doctors. She was now going to go get her real estate license. And long story short, the number of transactions that one phone call was going to net, when he could have just gotten the alert and been like, oh, he's, you know, he's going to refinance with the servicer, and just ignored the alert. Instead, he made the call. And that's what I mean by that one sidekick. And even if you're down, because I know a lot of real estate agents or loan officers, your numbers could be down. What you can control is how you show up every day. How do you respond, even if you're a few calls short from the day before? Are you going to have grit and the fight so that you can reach whatever it is that you're wanting to reach with your goals, both business and, you know, personally?
I mean, I just love that, right? Because here's a guy, and, you know, the bottom line is he's lost all those rounds. So he is effectively lost the fight. The only way that he can win is to knock the guy out, right? I mean, it's not like he could score enough points to win. I don't know UFC, but I'm assuming if you're winning rounds, then you got to do that. I know in boxing, like, you know, it's a certain number of points and how many hits you have. In my presentation, I'm about to give these financial advisors in a bit, I used a Muhammad Ali quote: in the big leagues, everyone has ability. It always comes down to mind games. Whoever is more mentally strong wins. And I do think you kind of have to play, you know, mind games. And so I think it's, you know, go back to the Drake story, right? It is, that's the, right. He could have admitted defeat. I think oftentimes people feel like, oh yeah, someone's going with the servicer, they're going to make it easier. They're going to be cheaper, right? Price over advice. And, you know, advice always wins. You know, worst case is you give the advice, they go the other route, and then they remember and come back to you. You know, I ran into clients yesterday at our little, I shouldn't say our little, because I got invited, we crashed. Adam had a tailgate party. So I crashed the tailgate
Yeah.
party, and there's people there that I pre-qualified for a mortgage back in my mortgage days. And they were like, gosh, Todd, I don't know if we ever said thank you way back then that we bought, they bought a new build. So they used the builder's lender, but I coached them through what to do and how to do it, because it was a great deal. They were getting so much money from the builder. It just didn't make sense to use an outside lender. And, but I just know they still work with our team ever since then. And I don't know how many years ago that was, but, ultimately people remember the advice you give. And obviously in Drake's case, he hit the home run, got the knockout punch, because he ended up getting not only a bigger loan for them with the best strategy, but also that other future stuff. All right, what other thoughts on that? And then let's talk about this guy who made 80 grand doing a CMA. I mean, come on, that's so awesome.
I mean, I think we need to dive right into that one because I found it on TikTok. So just shows.
I don't know that thing. What's that thing called? The TikToker?
I'm telling you, you need to we just need to make you an account, because all these little micro, nuggets that we're creating, putting as YouTube shorts could be TikToks. Just saying. It's not as, so here is my little social media update, is in case any of y'all have wondered, all videos have now been converted to Reels. So if they're 15 minutes or less, if you've wondered why your feed maybe looks a little wonky, it's because all videos have now been, even past videos that you've posted have now been transformed into Reels. So we have an oversupply. Essentially, it will all get worked out, but if you've seen a decrease in your views or your engagement, that's why. And it's also why you should be on other platforms like TikTok, where there's not an oversupply, or YouTube Shorts. So don't forget that in your content strategy for social media.
We can talk about that. I have, for my upcoming Loan Officer podcast, I interviewed Michelle Mason, and she is awesome. She loves TikTok and gets referrals all the time from it. And so I committed on our next group coaching call, she's going to have me and the other members, we're going to all do TikTok videos. So I didn't want to break it. You and I've already done a TikTok video, that this would be my second one, because that great one we did a couple of years ago, it's been a long time with Dave. But all right. So, obviously,
can I just say, do you know how many deals Michelle has sent Denise just this month?
Nope.
At least 2 that have closed.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Just from networking.
That's it. Well, I tell her, she sends them out to people that she knows from the Win by Noon community and through the mortgage coach community, because she wants to be taken care of. So, all right. So the CMA day thing, right? We got this little fancy CMA day challenge. You can always go to the Win by Noon user mastermind group, ask to become a member. Say you just watched it. You don't have to be a Win by Noon user, and then you can get the free version of this. But this is the cool one that you just go to winbynoon.com/TCA, and you can get the big old CMA day poster, which is TCA day on one side and CMA day on the other side. They're pretty cheap. I mean, someone just bought it's a 5-pack is $20 or one is $5. But you can still use the free one. So we're not always here trying to sell you stuff. We got the free version in the files section of that Win by Noon mastermind group. And all right, so tell me, so you sent us that video, and it was a TikTok guy. So that's good. We like that.
It was Jimmy, and I can't pronounce his last name, but
Jimmy Burgess is the original guy.
Yes. I love Jimmy's new book that came out, where it was like scripts for real estate agents, but he was highlighting.
Jimmy Macklin. I know which one you're talking about. That's actually Phil Smith's book. And then Phil Smith did a version with them.
Oh,
So I met Phil Smith. Kevin Kaufman had him actually come to his mastermind that I went to earlier this year, and met Phil, who's the main author. He's a super nice guy, lives in Manhattan. And I did actually ask him if he would come on to one of our calls. So we might get a call in the future. So
that would be great.
Stay tuned on that.
Great. Well, so he was highlighting Ken Pozak, and I know there's a lot of people who had done the CMA a day challenge, or maybe even the TCA day challenge last, like, end of the year quarter, maybe starting off the year this year. And I bring this up because I think it's relevant. It's at a pivotal time when we're at August is right before kind of fall, October holiday season's coming. You typically see, I know people keep saying buyer demand is weakening, but I really just think it's, not enough listings that are coming up, which is seasonal. That's normal a little bit. And so what better way than to recharge and kind of spark up your team? And a challenge is always a good and fun thing to do. So I know my sister's doing a fitness challenge in next month. I would recommend, her business happens to be up year over year. So I know that's not everybody. So if you need a fun way to make it a team thing, to show grit and a fight, I recommend the CMA a day challenge, because Ken Pozak from Orlando, he and his team did this for July. And they did 30 plus CMAs, because it's a CMA a day challenge. Of those 30 CMAs, they earned 12 listing appointments. Of the 12 listing appointments, they had 5 that became actual listings. one of those listings was also a buyer, so total of 6. So you can say about 50%, conversion from the listing appointments. So those 6 deals gave them 80,000 in commissions just by doing the CMA a day challenge. And I say just by doing that challenge, but there was things that they had to do prior to, which I did send him a DM. I was going to see if we can get him scheduled on one of these calls for Win by Noon. But there's a little bit of work that you were going to start this in September. How could you be proactive of already having how many calls you think you would need to make, or what criteria are you going to look for in order to craft the CMA? So I thought it's relevant. Ken just did it in Orlando. It was just this July. Those are great numbers. What would stop any of you listening right now from doing the same thing?
Fear, complexity. All right, so let's talk about this, right? So either you're a real estate agent and you're like, maybe I should do that because $80,000 would be nice in my bank account. Or even if you just had, 1/6 the success, you got one listing or one buyer out of it. How cool would that be? So number one, if you're a real estate agent, then what's stopping you from doing it? Just like Deborah asked, I think that that's really important. And I feel like we often just get in our own way and we just need to get going. And so when you're talking about prep work, let's talk about that a sec. But the second part is, right, a lot of you are loan officers who are watching this. And again, you're looking for a reason to call your real estate partners to help them because they're struggling. And this is a great story. So I'll make sure when we put this up onto YouTube and I put it back on the Facebook group, I'll make sure that we put a link to the TikTok on there so that you can all watch it. You can send it to your agents. But this is, it doesn't matter which seat you're sitting in. This is a great opportunity for you to either increase your own business or add value. And if you're a loan officer, to your real estate agents. And lastly, of course, if you're a loan officer, I'm thinking you might have similar results from a TCA a day challenge. I don't know that you'd get 6 if you did 30, but you might get 2 or 3 people who need to cash out refinance because they've got high interest credit card debt. So just think about that as well. I think that is a really good opportunity as well. All right. So we talked about, you mentioned prep. You have to prep. So what do you think are some of the things that goes into prep to be ready to start in September versus just starting today?
Well, I would have a very targeted list of who are going to be the most optimal people that you could convert. So even if you are a loan officer, you could make this, maybe September is going to be your seller buy down month. And so you could proactively reach out and create TCA strategies for listing agents who are experiencing price reductions. And that's an annuity of income. That's that sidekick that I'm talking about, that you may have done a TCA challenge before. Maybe you didn't finish it all the way through, or maybe you didn't have the best of results, but this is where this could be your 5th round. And this one activity where you're reaching out to the listing agents, how do you make it so tailored where you're being intentional of who you're contacting? So that would be number one. If I were a loan officer, I would go to Redfin, and you can go to the buyer page and you can sort from your area of number of price reductions and say the last 14 days. And that is where I would start to be proactive of who could I send a seller buy down strategy from an agent standpoint, so that you could potentially earn an annuity of income of business from the agent partners. If I were a listing agent, I would go after either any non-owner occupieds, or look at who has a certain number of maybe their equity position. When did you help them buy or sell the last home, and try to tailor of who's going to be the most valuable people to contact right now, given this time. So you're not just opening up your database and starting with like A's. You need to be intentional. And if you have a loan officer, obviously, who has trigger alerts or could see maybe there's credit improvement, maybe there's an equity, maybe there's a life event that's going on, whether someone's getting married. I have heard just from agents of the clients that they are helping right now, it's all of them seem to be life event type things: job change, getting closer to grandkids, death, marriage, divorce.
Interesting. I would say a couple things because I think that was great, all great advice. So remember that if you go to our YouTube channel, the Win by Noon YouTube channel, we do have how to make a CMA. We had an agent on earlier this year. We also have Jimmy, I just said his name, Burgess, who was the one who kind of was, I call him the father of the CMA a day. We interviewed him last year. So there's some great content in there in those old videos if you're questioning that. But I do think that, yeah, everyone's going to have different criteria for who might be the best person to move. I mean, think about it. Most people move every 5 to 8 years. So look at people who've been in their house for longer. Life events on my team. I was on a call with our team last week, and they said that there's a large number of people who are helping their kids buy houses right now. They've got a lot of in their early 20s where mom or dad or both are going on the loan to get the child into their first home, gifting them the down payment. So that one is kind of a trend, that we're seeing. So again, just things out there that you can be aware of and, think about what may help you. One of my LOs is working with a realtor that I'm a friend with, and the realtor actually called me this morning saying, oh my gosh, we put our home on the market. Their new build is done, I guess, in a month. And lo and behold, markets, right? More inventory on the market. And they didn't have as many showings as they thought. So she said, hey, do you think someone on your team could prepare a TCA or could give us some information, some brochures or something on a 2-1 buy down? And I said, oh gosh, we'll go one better. We'll get a TCA done. So the loan officer is going to do a TCA with the 2-1 buy down that they can put in the remarks in the MLS, because they already put in there, hey, we'll consider a buy down with a full price offer. But they're going to give them a TCA video so that they'll have that adoption. And then if my team ever gets their lender launchpad account going, then we would do that one too. But then maybe that'll be the impetus there. I'll have to ask Matt how he's doing on that one, because I have him working on that with Scott. Won't go down that tangent. But bottom line is this, right? Think about what are the other trends that you have that you can go after, right? It's getting ready, but I think in the end, don't overthink it. If you're like, well, that's going to take me too long, and you're going to start in October instead of September because you want to comb through every single person, and just start somewhere, right? I agree with Deborah. Don't go through the A's and then the B's, but just maybe reverse engineer, go in your CRM by close date, and then start with the oldest ones, and then move your way forward. And that might be a good place to start.
And even annual asset reviews with property taxes and new tax values coming out. I know a lot of people will get that around October, November, sometimes December, but you could be proactive in just starting with the annual reviews or happy home anniversary, and just giving them the information of here's how you could appeal your tax value, or make sure, like, double check, we're running an assessment, looks like you never filed your homestead or whatnot, just different things that you could be proactive on if you wanted to go back and look at, okay, let's see, September, if I wanted to start with who have I ever closed a loan for in September, and you could then do a sort of oldest to then newest, obviously, and even looking at maybe which ones were FHA. Could you possibly convert them into conventional and get them out of paying the mortgage insurance? Maybe there are some that you still have that have 2 liens. I mean, and maybe you could combine them and you could show them a net savings of just what that would look like. So not everybody took advantage and refinanced when rates were low, and that could be for a number of different reasons. Maybe they were in forbearance, and depending on your company, you couldn't help them at that time, and maybe they just didn't re-engage. But I think an annual asset review is also another one you could add to the list.
No, I think that's kind of huge. And so remind me this guy's name that we're talking about. That
Ken Pozak.
Okay, so Ken Pozak. So think about this, that because of the fact that Ken got 6 transactions, $80,000, think of the other ones that they set up for the future, right? Anyone else that didn't decide to list today, they probably told him and his team, you know what, we're going to list next year. You know what, we're going to list in 5 years. You know what, we're never going to list. But they have that information now of how to engage and best support that client going forward. And oftentimes we're looking at the immediate gratification, but go back to you loan officers like, yeah, I'm not going to call that person with a 2.75 interest rate who doesn't have any debt, right? But think about that. They might be then saying, gosh, you know what, we're outgrowing this house, we're going to move next year. And so again, remember, if someone says they're going to do something in the future, you got to cut it in half. So if they say, hey, I'm going to move in a year, then you better be calling them in 6 months. In fact, you really should be calling them in 3 months, and then again in 6 months, because by that time, once you hit 9 months out, they've probably already engaged with a different real estate agent and loan officer. And so you want to be on the front end of that. But just remember, the opportunity may not be a today opportunity, but again, all you're trying to do is plant those seeds for the future harvest, and don't be scared to have someone say no, because again, it's just the connections that you make that build those future bounties.
I mean, that I don't think you could have said it any better. Sometimes even just checking in, and maybe this is your time to re-engage because you weren't in the trenches of trying to get a loan closed, and who knows how fast you were trying to do it. But maybe this phone call could be the time that you uncover that they have parents that are a little bit older that, who know if something were to happen to them, or, you could just learn more about the family. Maybe they have kids going off to college. Maybe they have a daughter that's getting married, and, their mortgage or marriage, whatever that show is. By the way, did you see that there's going to be a Shark Tank edition for home buyers?
No.
I'll send you the screenshot, but it's like a Shark Tank. Anyways,
All right. I
squirrel.
can't wait to see that. Okay. So think about that. You just kind of hit the nail on the head. So again, let's go back. Let's try to lower the barriers to start this now. Because some of you are like, yeah, I've heard you say this for the last 15 years, Todd, right? A long time. Deborah and I talk about this. It comes up in almost every weekly call that we do, and you still haven't done it, or maybe you did it and you stopped, or maybe you did it and you're still doing it. And maybe you got extra time now and we got to add a little fuel to the fire. So you do a few more. Here's the way to not even worry about when they bought the house, what their loan looks like, what their debt looks like, what their credit score was. Hey, it's Todd Bookspan with the Bookspan Baker team. I'm just checking in. How are you doing? Right? That's it. That's all you have to say. Just checking in. How are you doing? And then you can steer the conversation towards everything else. Now, it's a little easier if you built a good rapport with the client in the past, right? If you didn't really connect with the client, then it's a little bit harder. I talked to a loan officer the other day and he's like, oh yeah, I've got this group that's going to call from, some call center, and they're going to call my past clients and set up annual mortgage reviews. And I'm like, that's going to be a hard one because they don't have that connection that you have with the clients. Wouldn't it just be better maybe for you just to try to commit to doing 5 calls a day and slowly work through your database instead of having someone else do it and sound like it's impersonal, right? Just think about what you can do. But the bottom line is the more you think about it, the more you complicate it, the more difficult it is. My friend, Coach Michael Regan, always says, complexity is the enemy of profitability. It's a pretty good quote, I think.
That's good. I always say keep it simple, because
That's pretty simple too.
I do think we overcomplicate. It's almost a safety mechanism, and I'm guilty of this too, to just deflect taking action, to be perfectly transparent. But that's why when you were messaging me about, the Cardinals, and I was thinking of this fight, I thought, here was somebody that, because I think it's natural to also compare ourselves to other top producers that maybe, you work with or that we have on different calls, and you think, yeah, but it's always that, yeah, but they have this and they have that and they've been doing it longer. And you can get caught up in that game. And when I was watching the fight, I thought, there's so many people that could feel down right now, or they feel like they haven't done a good job nurturing their database because they've been, slammed with refis. And so it's hard to get up. And there were many times that I'm sure with Edwards, it was hard for him to get back up. But when your goal and your why is big enough to get you to then take action where you don't fear the rejection, if your true motive is just to reach out, obviously you want to reconnect and possibly get business from them. But if you just start with showing how much you care and literally ask the question, how are you? At a time when not a lot of people may be getting asked that, because everyone has gone to social media, and there are some people who would love that phone call or text message or even video message. I had a video message from Bill Hart from when our Welcome podcast aired, and he was one of the only ones that did a video text message to Denise and I thought it was so meaningful. One, because he's just Coach Hart, but to take the time to record a video, and he was very specific about some things. And I thought, wow, that really shows that he cares. So you guys could do that too by just doing the pre-call stalk, is what I call it. So if you're not following me on social media, go follow Plug and Play SM, because I just did a post about this. I think it was last week, of how you could do the pre-call stalk and kind of look at someone's account and kind of see what's been going on in their life and maybe interact a little bit. And then that gives you something to talk about in advance, like you were proactively calling about something you saw on their feed. All
right. I like that. So we're hitting our 30-minute mark. And so, but I of course always have like these last couple of thoughts. So number one is I like that whole pre-call stalk. And what about like maybe even just sending them a video text? Again, you could do one that's generic, but I think that'd be bad. Like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Let's jump on a call and send it to 100 people. That's not as good. But if I could say, hey, Deb, I saw that America's team lost last night. I'm really sorry. Let's catch up and see what's going on. And
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
Well, the Eagles did win. My Cardinals lost, but ultimately it's still preseason. We know it doesn't matter. But you could make it personal and say, hey, I'd love to jump on a call with you. And again, you can pre-engage via text and then make the phone call. But I think the challenge also is you make a call, you get voicemail, you make a call, you're not as connected to the person as you thought. They're like, who is this? And you're like, wait, we were best friends when I did your loan. and you get frustrated. But then if you go to that fourth or fifth or that sixth person that you talk to who actually is like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. Like, it's so great to catch up. I think that's really important. And I think that that's just a great, just a great opportunity for you to motivate yourself to go forward. So I'm gonna tell one last story, and then I'll let you tell a story. So this is part of my presentation I'm actually giving on goal setting to these financial advisors here in just a bit. And I had never heard this story before, but when Jim Rohn was in his 20s, he had a Girl Scout knock on his door to sell him Girl Scout cookies. And he didn't have the $2 that it cost to buy a box of cookies. He said at that moment, it was really pivotal because he thought to himself, you know what, I'm someone in my 20s and I don't even have $2 to spare to buy some Girl Scout cookies. And I'm never going to let that happen again. And that's when he kind of got himself going on the stretch to become the Jim Rohn that we all know and love. And so think about that. There's oftentimes it's that frustration that you have. And so just look at your business. Maybe it's because you're frustrated of something, and think about that Jim Rohn story and see if maybe that will motivate you. That's one of typically the 5 reasons that people reach their goals. So maybe I'll even talk about that on a future episode. So, all right, that's my tie up for the day. What is your tie up, Ms. Bird?
Well, I would say just put a bow on that. It goes back to, your third, fourth string players that are out there in preseason, literally playing for their job. It's sometimes we take for granted, the opportunities that we have here. And I have someone that works with me. They are back in South Africa right now with family, and just, it's so different from when they moved over to the States versus going back and visiting, and how it's almost reverse racism over there. And, they have internet outages, and it's just completely different than what we have here. I mean, we have something as grateful as like this little device that can connect us to so many people. When, if you've ever watched the movie Founder with McDonald's, and you literally had to like carry this huge thing with you and go door knocking because you didn't have the advances that we have today. And yet we still make up these excuses of why we can't be more successful than maybe our great grandparents, when we have so many more, ways to do that. So I would just encourage you all that we're headed into fourth quarter, and, this may be the time that you've got to double down, and you do not push, you don't take your foot off the gas. I know it's soon to be holidays, which it can be easy to then start to coast because there's all these holiday parties and you're eating food and you can get out of certain routines. But this is where you've got to really be a warrior for your pipeline and protect your daily activities, so that this builds the momentum that you must have to survive, come first quarter, and thrive, hopefully not just survive, but and thrive into next year.
All right, so I have to add one last thing, since I see some of my good friends still here hanging on watching us live, or probably some of you be watching this video. So it's just going out because I can hear Adam with the tape gun. I can see stacked. If I showed you outside of my window, it's stacked high and wide, all the Win by Noon planners that are going out. And we announced in there that I'm going to be teaching another version of the operating system 2.0 starting October 4th. And it's going to be, I don't know what the percent will end up being, but I'm redoing it. It's going to be probably still 70% the same of what I've taught in the past, because I think it's really critical, but it's going to have new content that's focused on accountability, which again, no one wants, but I'm going to up the accountability in the group. And I'm going to really be laying this foundation for Q4 as the launch pad to start 2023 off on a better foot. And so I know some of you who are watching this were in the original group. So we will do a discount for people who participated in the past operating system. You'll just have to send me an email. We'll figure out what that looks like. In fact, I'm open for suggestions on it, but it probably will be like a 50% discount. Like, let's just call it that 50% discount for someone who's been through before, who wants to jump in with the new content. And I'm really, really stoked about it. So I know Deborah was one of my encouragers, and Adam just did the flyer and said, hey, Todd, we're launching this. So maybe that was your suggestion, but I'm super excited for that.
Well, so Todd, I actually bought an extra ticket to Sales Mastery.
Yeah.
Sales Mastery is how I found Win by Noon. So maybe we come up with a cool way to raffle off that extra ticket for anyone who does the CMA or TCA a day challenge in September, since Sales Mastery is in October. Maybe we think of something creative. We could raffle off that
I
ticket.
am going.
They got to earn it.
Adam and I will be there. Actually, my whole team, all my sales team will be there. For my loan officers who actually work for our team will all be there. And And Todd just sent me a code I can give out to people to get a discount too. So I don't
Ooh.
exactly know what the code is, but ultimately, if people want, in fact, we better just see what that is now. And then we really should let you all go and get back to work. But
Yes.
hang on, let me look at my text. Todd Duncan. Okay, there's a smiling face. The code is SMWBN for Sales Mastery Win by Noon. I have no idea what you get for that. It could be the world's best deal ever, or it could be mediocre. My guess is it's pretty dang good, because that's where it's at. So it'll be a fun place for us all to hang out. Just side note too, I will also be hanging out at, what's that thing called? Mastermind in Vegas next month.
Oh yeah.
Adam and I will be there. And then if any of you live in Austin, Texas, just up the road from America's Team, or down the road, whichever direction it is, I'm going to be there for a couple of days at the end of September at a Keller Williams Wealth event.
Oh,
So,
well, I will be at the Tom Ferry event all week this week in Dallas. So if any of you are going to be in Dallas for Tom Ferry's summit, then let me know and we can sync up and connect, and make sure you bring your Win by Noon planner so I can snap some photos in action.
all right. I love it. All right. Well, you guys are all the best. Sorry we took you so long. Appreciate you being here and being part of the community. If you're watching this on the video, we would love you on the YouTube. We would love you to give it a like and subscribe. And just know, from the bottom of our hearts, we're here every week because we want to help you be the best you that you can be. We'll see you next Monday, if not sooner.
Bye.